Well, I am very excited to be here this morning. Welcome, everyone. So welcome to Teaching and Learning 2.0, Integrating Generative AI into Open Education Resources, featuring Liza Long, Associate Professor of English at the College of Western Idaho, and Reed Hepler, Digital Initiatives and OER Librarian at the College of Southern Idaho. This event is part of the webinar series Open Voices, Just Choices, sponsored by the OER for Social Justice Initiative at Loyola Marymount University. If you're curious and you'd like to learn more about the initiative and the faculty teams working on OER, feel free to visit our website. And I'm sure Karna, our very great link queen, has already posted into chat. So again, we're very excited to have you in this virtual space with us today. Even though we are virtual, as organizers, we just want to recognize that here at LMU, we occupy land cultivated and produced by the Chumash, now the nation of Chumash indigenous peoples, the Gabrielino Tongva communities, and the Quiche. We want to start by recognizing their history and calling attention to their presence. This knowledge can guide our advocacy for all Indigenous life and culture and guide our practice of the land as a living being and deserving of our utmost respect. We encourage you to learn more about the history of the land where you are by going to native-land.ca. And just a gentle reminder of our code of conduct for our webinar series. Each participant today has the right to learn, network, and socialize in an environment of respect and professionalism, free from harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Creating such an environment is a shared responsibility of everyone involved in the Open Voices, Just Choices event. Please feel free to message me directly, Natalie Blas, in chat if you believe that there has been a violation of this code of conduct. Last but not least, before I give it over to our presenters, just wanted to do a few housekeeping. During the speaker talks, please keep yourself muted. The co-host will be muting attendees if we start to hear some background noise. However, during the open discussions, please feel free to leave your mics and your videos on if you would like. Comments and questions are welcome in the chat box at any time. So we actually encourage you, feel free to drop them into chat. Karna will be keeping track of the questions. Just a note, we will prioritize questions from the OER for social justice faculty teams. All sessions except the concluding discussion will be recorded, and we'll make sure to share that with you all. Right, I know that was quite a bit, but with that, I want to hand it over to Liza and Reed.
Hi, everyone. We're so grateful to be here with you today. And I put my land acknowledgement in the chat. I'm coming to you from the ancestral homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, and Bannock tribes, and I'm so grateful to be able to live and work here. And I'm also really grateful to be here with my colleague, Reed Hepler from the College of Southern Idaho. Reed's going to be sharing our slide deck. I also put a link to that slide deck in the chat, and I will put it there one more time. So we are going to be talking to you today based on some questions that you sent us. I know Reed and I are super excited because we kind of live and breathe AI, and seeing the level of sophistication of your questions, we thought, oh, these are people who really have already made some great strides in this area. So I think we're also hoping to learn some things from you. At least I personally am hoping to learn some things from you today. We'll have some opportunities throughout the presentation to share your ideas and thoughts in the chat, and also to help create a crowdsourced resource that you'll be able to take away from the presentation today. So I'll let Reed introduce himself and get our presentation going. But again, thank you for the opportunity, and we're really grateful for the chance to talk to you all about AI today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Liza. I was thrilled when I heard from Teresa, hey, we want you to do something along with Liza, because we both love each other's work, so it's really exciting to be able to do this. I'm Reed Hepler. I work at the College of Southern Idaho. So Liza is at the College of Western Idaho. I'm in Southern Idaho, and I am the digital initiatives librarian there. So you might not think that's exactly related to teaching, but I also was the OER librarian and now I've combined AI, OER, copyright into my position. So I do a lot of stuff with copyright and AI and open access. And I'm really happy to be talking about how basically all of this intersects, because this basically is a presentation about, my job. And so it's really exciting. Liza came up with this excellent title, Robots Won't Replace Us. If you do not follow her on Substack, you should.
Artisanal intelligence.
Artisanal
Yeah.
intelligence. I can't pronounce
My
that.
kids thought that was a really funny name for an English professor's blog about AI, so we laughed.
It's really good. Yeah. So follow her. And yeah.
Follow Reed. Reed's is in the chat too.
Thank you very much.
Reed's
Yeah,
is great.
so my blog is called Collaboration. Really kitschy because the A in Asian is spelled AI, but it does. So we're gonna get going here on Robots Won't Replace Us, talking about intersections between AI, OER, and education. So when you think about working with students and when you think about AI, a lot of times you automatically think, in my experience, there are four main perspectives that educators have when they're talking about AI and education. There's fear that the students are going to misuse it, confidence that they're going to use it well, fear that AI is going to disrupt how you teach, or, excuse me, or confidence that you're going to be able to use it well and that you'll be able to be productive. And those aren't exclusive from each other. You can have fear that your students are going to misuse it, and you can have confidence that you're going to use it correctly, or vice versa. Or you could have confidence in one area, but not a lot of confidence in another. And when you combine that with the ambivalence a lot of times that people have towards OER, there's a lot of different, there's a wide spectrum on many different levels of belief in what you're doing, belief in your abilities. And so when you think about AI and working with students, what are some words that come to your mind? Now do I have the chat? I think I have the chat.
I've already put my word in there, Reed, and
Awesome.
I hope you all won't think less of me, but there are just some weeks where I wake up and there's like 17,000 new tools. Somebody else has resigned from OpenAI, and I'm just like, what is going on here? And I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed right now. So,
Yeah.
so if that's you, that's fine. Yes, like Gina put ever changing. Ryan, I am mostly super excited about it. I think transformative is a very apt word. Teresa put curious. That doesn't surprise me, Teresa. Like wary. Yes. I think wary is an important concept to keep in mind. It's something really new, right? So mixed messages. No, you can use as many words as you want. So yeah, we do seem to be getting mixed messages. It's either going to save humanity or destroy humanity. There's not a lot of wiggle room between those two things. And so while we're thinking, you can continue to share stuff in the chat. We just kind of wanted to get a feel for how you felt about it. I apologize ahead of time. Again, you can tell I'm kind of cheesy already. I love memes. So I saw this meme several months ago, and it just made me laugh so hard. I'm a classicist by background, so of course it's Pandora opening the box, right? And I think this meme speaks to me personally and how I feel, because there was so much in that box that completely changed the experience of mortals on Earth, right? And that's kind of, I think, the place that we're at. Crystal had said transformative again. But also like your ideas of being wary, or that this is a twofold technology. Yes, there's a lot to be excited about. There's also a lot that we want to maybe be cautious about. And certainly it's changed the way that we teach and interact with students. I was running from a previous meeting and I planned to be here 15 minutes early, but a professor asked me really quickly, he's like, how do I get my students to stop having AI write their discussion board post? And we're going to talk about that today. I know that's
Yeah.
something that's probably resonating with a lot of you who are teaching fully online. So yeah, I can get easily sidetracked. But thank you for sharing your ideas. We're going to drill down into some of our ideas, and the way we shaped our presentation today was from information we got from Teresa and others about questions you already had. And we want to stress there are some areas we might know a little bit more than others. So again, if we don't know something, we're happy to investigate it, get back to you. Or if someone in the chat does know the answer, we're always really grateful when we can knowledge share. So thank you for sharing your views. Reed, let's head on to our next slide, and Reed's going to tell you a little bit about technology models of integration, why we might feel overwhelmed.
Yes. Okay. So this model of technology integration is from another of our colleagues, one of my teachers actually in my instructional design program, Dr. John Curry. And in 2022, well, really over like years and years, he developed this model of integrating technology into the classroom. And he said, when you have any technology, and this was again before AI was a thing, he said, you need to come at it from a human-centered, person-centered perspective. You need to think, how are my students going to use this? How are they going to learn from it, but also use it? And basically, how can I teach this technology in a way that's not distracting and detracting from what the subject matter or the skill set they're originally trying to learn. So he said there are 4 phases of this model. The first is more teacher-centered, where the teacher consumes materials and consumes the technology and learns about it. And then the second, which is student-centered, well, more directly, is the teacher produces things with the technology. Thank you very much, Liza. That can help students learn about the technology and learn about their subject matter. So they're not, having a whole class session about a certain technology. They're just kind of integrating it into classroom in a more natural way. And they're able to do this, I forgot to mention, because when they're consuming things built by that technology, they're consuming things with an eye toward, what do my students need to learn? How can this help my students? And then once the students, consume what the teacher has produced, they then consume other things and learn on their own about the technology and how to use it. And then finally, they produce things with it in a similar way to how the teacher produced things later. And so if you see, it's not really apparent from this image, but you have this chain of teachers teaching students who become teachers to other people, who become teachers to other people. And it's a chain of best practices, high quality, experience-based learning about education.
One thing that I think of when you show this slide, Reed, and explain this process is, we notice that the student is centered at a lot of these levels. And one thing we're definitely hearing from our students, and you're probably hearing from your students as well, is that since this is new for them, it's also new for us, but they're still looking to us to be able to provide them with guidance and support about these new technologies. So I think, at least from my perspective, that's why even as an English professor, I've tried very hard to stay abreast of new technologies, to try to understand the major issues, and also to think about how I can incorporate them in my teaching, because my students want to know and they want my guidance. This gives us, all of us, a unique opportunity to shape how students think about these models. And I shared the link in the chat to the article. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Reed.
Yeah, it's a very good article.
Yes. So when we have talked to others about working with students, the number one concern, and I shared it, that's why I was running from another meeting, that we've heard from our colleagues is that they are worried about academic integrity, right? And I mean, I guess it's worth a whole semantic conversation about whether what AI does is plagiarism or something else, right? Since it's not really stealing from one particular work. It's not like what we used to see with copy paste plagiarism. But certainly academic integrity is important to this conversation. One thing that's been a little, I guess, frustrating is the word I would use for me, is that I feel like at least in my own discipline in English, we're getting kind of stuck on this idea of how do I catch students who are using AI instead of doing their own work. And I'm also a student right now. I've gone back to school to work on my PhD in English. My doctorate's actually in organizational leadership, which is kind of useful for all of the changes we're going through, but I want to get something in my discipline. One of my professors has in his syllabus no use of ChatGPT ever, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. You are a graduate student. Why would you use AI? Exclamation point, question mark. And I have, colleagues who have similar approaches. And in a sense, he's right. And I think this is where we have to start with our students, right? Like, he's right. I'm a graduate student. I chose to do that because I really love this stuff. And I really do want to learn and write my own papers. But also, the snarky part of me that's created a bot that writes exactly like I do thinks to myself, how would you know? Right. So when I get stuck as a teacher in the mindset of trying to catch people who are using AI, we're seeing increasing amounts of research that's showing we're actually not as good at this as we think that we are, right? And also, like, this isn't why I went into this profession, because I want to sit there and wonder if my students are cheating or not, right? Like, I think in a sense we treat academic integrity issues the way we've always treated plagiarism, probably as one-offs. Probably most students don't want to cheat. Students who do cheat are going to do it for the same reasons they've always cheated. Usually it's a time management issue, or they've got other pressures in their lives, or those types of things. It's the same reason students have always cheated. And if we're very clear about encouraging behavior that we want to see, making sure that we have buy-in, as always, as it's always been, our students are going to be more invested and engaged in doing their own work. Now, it's certainly easier for them to just ask a chatbot, but when we really just do a little upfront investment in time to explain to students why we're teaching and why it's important for them to learn, I found in general my students are good with that. Now, where I've had to up my game, and I didn't want to say this to my colleague today, but I thought it. I thought, oh, well, what discussion board questions are you asking if all of your students are using ChatGPT to write the responses? And I think at this group, you've all probably already gone through that thought process. But I found a nicer way to ask it, and it became clear that he was, in fact, asking some questions that are pretty easy for a generative AI tool to answer, right? So making your assignments engaging and authentic is one way to make sure students are doing work. In my classes, for a long time when these tools came out, I had a balanced approach in my syllabus, so students could use AI for some things and not for others. I've completely changed that approach. I actually allow them to use AI for anything, yes, up to and including writing their papers. And I give them an example of a paper that AI wrote I wrote, I prompted AI to write it. With the thought process that I'll probably make them rewrite that paper because it's not really the best use of their time. But I want to see how they're using AI. And that's what I tell them. I say, we're all learning together. We're not quite sure how these tools will help or harm us, or where they're more useful or less useful. So let's try stuff. And then let's just be very transparent about where we're trying. And I'm being the same way, right? So when I'm using AI, in the class, whether to create a rubric or to help me review or revise an assignment, I cite and acknowledge it just like I expect them to. I don't know that we'll always do this. I don't know that it'll be this way forever, to be clear. But right now with the new technology, I think it's helpful, right? Like, none of us are citing and acknowledging spell check at this point, right? But, maybe at some point it will be useful. So with that in mind, though, I'm also teaching my good students, quote unquote. I don't know how many of you have tried this, but I certainly have. AI checkers like GPT-0 especially is 100% sure that I'm a robot. So pretty much anything that I wrote, like even in 1997, if I put it through that tool, it says that AI wrote it. So I'm very sympathetic to my students who are falsely accused. And I tell them that even when I don't accuse them, but even when I ask them to have a conversation with me, I say, look, up front, I'm a good writer. You might be a good writer. This tool it catches what we think of as conventionally good writing, right? Academic writing. So I've taught my so-called good writers, I think everyone's a good writer and it's a skill, but I've taught them just to be proactive, right? So tracking their labor, having some way to show that they did their work, and being prepared to defend their work and their position orally. All of these are good skills for them to learn anyway. They're learning to advocate for themselves, right? But I think it's worth keeping in mind because we've certainly seen many false accusations in the media. I think Reed had shared some stuff. So yeah, that lesson that you shared Reed has the paper that I talked about, and it's designed for my syllabus policy back when I used to allow some things and not others. This was the training that I gave my students. So I think it's really important to be very, very clear. And that lesson, you could just sub out your own policies. There's an H5P training that's pretty easy to work with or edit. It's all Creative Commons licensed. But then finally having them in my class just acknowledge what did you use? Why did you use it? How did it work for you? Reflecting on that, did it work like you thought it would? Was it a good choice for you to use this? That's where I'm definitely seeing some interesting student feedback, and they are also acknowledging and citing. And Reed, I know you're kind of an expert on the issues with AI detectors. Maybe there's some people here who still have tried to use them or who have hope for them. I will fully admit my own institution was all in on betting that Turnitin would have a great detector. And then when that didn't materialize, we were a little flat-footed this year. So I don't know how many of the other schools have been that way, but that was certainly the case at my institution. Yeah, Reed, do you have anything to add, or as with your background?
Well, one thing a little bit that you were talking about when you were talking about like the AI assignments, I once said, and I believe Liza, you and I were on the same, it was with a pack back, I think we were talking about that type of thing, using AI for assessments. And I said something and people got really mad at me, and I have since learned to be more diplomatic since I'm not that way, naturally. But what I said was, if an AI can do your assignment well, it's probably not a good assignment in the first place. It's probably not a good, it's not. And that's why, but what I learned is, and what I say now is, experiential learning is good because it helps people to express their human feelings and kind of be talking about metacognition and things like that. So experiential learning is a good way, so that AI cannot actually do the assignment, but it can help students fulfill the assignments by themselves, but it can't do it for them. About the AI detectors, yes, AI detectors are really problematic, and they do not take into account a bunch of different writing styles. They also unfairly penalize people who write in a way that is not the same, that's not conventional English, people who write in English as a second language, and people who communicate, and I should, in people who communicate in a way, I'll just say different than the norm, because there is really no norm. And Liza,
Yeah.
you've talked about that, but probably about 80% of my writing is scanned and is claimed to be AI by AI detectors, because I just don't write in a normal way. And so yes, AI detectors are very problematic. We can just leave it at that. But yes, thank you, Liza. And
Well,
if you
and
have
one thing
questions.
that was interesting, Reed, I don't know if you saw this conversation, but I use that bot that writes like me to write a blog post for myself.
Yes.
If you check my blog, you can find it, right? And like someone else in a group that we were in ran it through a bunch of different plagiarism detectors, AI plagiarism detectors. And it was surprising to me that so many of the detectors actually thought it was human written.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
that's amazing. I just get copies your voice.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, it's intriguing.
Yeah. So, if you haven't read Ethan Mollick's book Co-Intelligence yet, Reed and I probably throw out terms from that book pretty often. This was something we did as a faculty read at CWI last summer. And he has 4 basic principles for working with AI. One of the ones I always try to loop in with my students is to be the human in the loop when you're working with students about artificial intelligence tools. So, like I think, and I'd love, while I'm kind of sharing this, I'd love it if you would all maybe open up your favorite chat bot, whatever you use. I definitely have my favorite. It's definitely named Claude. Reed, I don't know, what's your favorite?
I use ChatGPT for more technical communication, and I use Claude for anything that requires a natural voice.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's pretty common. People are using different AIs in different ways. Like when I teach with Copilot because my school is a Microsoft school. So students will have access to Copilot and it kind of gives us a common language and common framing, but I very rarely use Copilot outside the classroom. So being the human in the loop, I already stressed that students really want to come to us for guidance and acknowledgement on what these tools mean, on how they can use them. Students still want to learn. They still want to engage with our course materials, but they also do have this tool that's ubiquitous and it's fairly easy to use. So I, I've dived right in to teaching with this. In fact, like I mentioned, I had limited syllabus use. So I think I may be an outlier on this. I would love to know what you all think. I know some of my colleagues are horrified by this. In my English 102 classes, that's first year writing, AI use is required. So, and I think because of the ethical issues, which we could go on and on about, that I think in the past, I always tried to have ways for students to opt out or to have optional AI activities. But as I looked at how I wanted to teach this fall, I decided I wanted to test out and incorporate kind of along Moloch's principles of always bringing AI to the table. I wanted to do that with first year writing in the writing process. And I wanted students to be co-investigators with me on this journey. So there was no real way to opt out of AI use in my class. I do feel that students should be able to opt out if they have ethical reasons for doing so. And my solution was just to let them know up front. The week before class, I emailed everyone and said, look, I'm requiring AI use. If you're excited about that or curious and open to it, that's great. If you're concerned about that, you should be, right? Here's this whole list of things of ethical concerns that people have about these tools, but I'm just letting you know up front there are other sections. And I didn't have anyone drop. And so far, everyone's been along for the ride. I just got through the first set of papers. So the way we use AI, they're using a tool called My Essay Feedback. It's built into our learning management system. This way I can see how they're prompting. So we create class prompts together for each writing task. I kind of chunk essays like a lot of people, and the tool will check their work, provide them feedback on a rubric, and then they can chat with it to ask it additional questions about its feedback or about their paper. And I can see all those chats. So it's a very transparent system. I just got finished reviewing the first rough drafts, and what I've found is just that with support, students are taking more riskier topics. They are more willing to let their own voice and their own stance on issues come out than what I've seen in previous classes. And they're like, in terms of minor things that I never really graded much on grammar and that type of thing anyway, but like those problems are basically fixed for them. So it makes them feel more confident in their writing. So that's just one example. But I build in healthy skepticism into the whole process. So part of each week's assignment is for them to evaluate the AI and provide feedback to the AI. So they have a task where they have to say, well, I think it did this. They tell me what did it get right? What was helpful to you? If anything, what wasn't helpful? Is there anything you think is wrong? Like one student pushed back, the AI told her that her APA style was wrong. She's a really good student. She's like, no, my APA is right. And it was like, oh yeah, you're actually right. Your APA looks great. So teaching students that these things can make things up, that they can get things wrong, and that the student doesn't have to accept what the AI produces in its, original form. They can have a conversation. They can treat it. Someone up earlier in the chat said partner or intern, right? Like treating it as a partner, as part of your process, but not to replace you. So as instructors, I feel like we need to be the humans in the loop. Oh, that's an AI generated picture I did of Reed and me.
Yeah,
Teresa, we're superheroes for AI superheroes. But we need to be the humans in the loop, but we need to remember students are also going to be the humans in the loop. So, bringing in AI in this way, I think helps me to prepare them for the workforce where they're likely going to need to have AI interaction skills. They're going to need to know how to prompt, and they're going to need to know how to evaluate AI output. So it's a very explicit teaching for transfer exercise in my class that I'm asking them to interact in this way. But we are all seeing better, more confident work. And that's what I'm hearing back from my students so far. Um, Part of this process, I think if you decide to go down this road, even middle of the road AI use, is it's important to be vulnerable. One thing that I'm tracking very closely, and the research is so new, is how using these tools is impacting students. So there's some pretty new research. I should have grabbed the study. I'll try to find it and follow up with you, but I just read a study, I think last week, that showed that when students were relying completely on ChatGPT, it was harming them. They weren't learning materials. They weren't really getting the skills they needed. But when they could use these tools to assist them, that could actually help them to improve their learning. So, to me, what this suggests is that the tools themselves are probably neutral, but how we teach and use these tools is incredibly important. And that's really what I'm trying to pay attention to. And being very vulnerable about that, I did have to stand up in front of my English 102 class and say, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, Reed, that's the one I was thinking of." And say, I might be hurting. I might be hurting you. I don't know. I hope I'm not. I hope I'm helping you, but we're trying something new. And sometimes when we try something new, it goes wrong, and that just requires some vulnerability. So I did ask you to open your favorite chatbot, and I know some of you had said that you're kind of new to this. What I want you to think about with your students and then also with yourself, if you're open to working with AI tools, is Ethan Mollick's principle to bring AI to the table. So we don't really know what it can do yet. A question I commonly get from my faculty is, well, what tools are best for education? And what's fascinating about this technology is that it was released without a specific use case, right? Basically, when ChatGPT was released in November 2022, OpenAI was like, we have this thing. How will you use it? Right? How will you use it? And so they're not dictating that from top down. They're actually looking for emergent behavior. Um, I we could go on and on about why you might do that versus something else, but there's not like really an AI tool per se. There's certainly lots of great things that you can use in the classroom, and there are more specialized tools like Perplexity or Google Notebook, my new favorite. Oh, Notebook LM is so amazing. But like certainly the chat bots, right? There's not like first do this and then do this and then do this. Instead, it feels very much like a Google search, for better or worse, right? I think maybe for worse because it's not accurate like we hope a Google search would be, right? But you have to bring the use case. So that's what I want you to do is just, and you can put a pin in this too, because we'll keep going, but like just opening up your favorite chatbot. This is the activity I want you to try sometime today, or even if you're like me and you need to multitask, you can try it now. Look at your calendar or your task list for the week and pick one thing that's on that list and try to write a prompt for it. See what you get, right? And you can report back to us. We'll keep going through the presentation, but this is an activity I want you to take, being the human in the loop, thinking about evaluating how do you write that prompt in the first place, and then how do you evaluate the output? And is AI useful for that particular task, right? So everybody's got your action item. Now Reed gets to talk about the boring stuff. And so like Drake meme, right?
Yes.
So you gotta know one of my favorite books and movies, Dune, to get this one, right? All right, Reed. I'd
Dune,
love to
yeah.
see.
Well,
Yeah.
Dune is one of my favorite books as well. And I mean, but it also is, um, and now, Foundation as well. And it's ironic because Dune was written as a response to Foundation saying that, Foundation is ridiculous, that would never happen, it shouldn't happen. And I'm tying this back into copyright, I promise. But when you read both of the books, I was actually struck by how similar they are and how the concepts of Asimov's stuff can be used with Frank Herbert's stuff almost seamlessly if you think about them in the right way. And in the Foundation series and the iRobot series, they eventually decide that robots are humans and that they have rights and that they should be respected, and they have all these different things because they're obeying their three laws that were created in their brains. They should be humans. And so how does this relate to copyright? Well, copyright is requiring human creation. It requires that there's a human agent who has created these materials. And right now AI is not considered a human, and so AI output cannot be copyrighted because a human did not create this. In a recent Copyright Office decision, and it's called the Liza Long decision. She was an author who wrote a book, wrote a novel, and this novel was denied copyright protection because she was transparent about using AI. But then she appealed using um, using the reason that I have mental hardship and AI helps me to write things, and that's why I should have copyright protection. That was her reasoning. But in the copyright decision, the Copyright Office's decision, they granted her a limited copyright protection, but did not use her argument at all. That was not their reason for their decision. And they said, we're not granting you full copyright. We are granting you copyright over selecting, arranging, formatting, and the content. So they established that precedent of going on a case-by-case basis. So in the chat, what are your main concerns about AI and copyright? And we are not copyright lawyers. I am a copyright librarian. We do not take our advice as a legal basis.
Yeah.
But what are your main concerns about AI and copyright? And we can address those.
I
Really for me to
I
talk about.
love that Elise said that AI use is not transparent. And yeah, I'm so fascinated by that, Elise, because I suspect that OpenAI does have watermarking technology for their content. Watermarking is what many of us in the early days said might be a solution for a detection method, right? Like if there was some way to watermark this digital content. I'm pretty sure OpenAI has that, but they really would alienate their users if they released a tool that could do that. So that's a whole complicated thing. So Lev, your question, we'll move on into the slides too, because I think we talk about it. Your question is one I'm personally interested in too. I'm actually, so we're going to look at this open access materials right now. So this is where we are right now with this. Reed, do you want to explain kind of how?
Yes, absolutely. And I actually I'm going to put a chapter I created in the chat on copyright and AI in a book that Liza and I co-wrote along with other people. It's called
I can
AI and
grab that.
Ethics in
Yeah.
Higher
Oh, you got it.
Education.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a book, a chapter on navigating artificial intelligence and copyright. But yes, an excellent question. Yes, message me on Discord or find me or email me about sci-fi. I'm all ready to talk about it. Open access materials. Okay, so what exactly, you all know probably what open access materials are. They're free to the public with no hidden costs or fees. They can be shared or duplicated, but some of them, these three ones at the or four or three at the bottom, cannot be duplicated, revised, edited, clarified, or combined with other content. They're strictly open access. These non-derivative ones and the full copyright. And so those are, again, strictly open access. But these 5 licenses up top, or 6 if you count public domain as being different from CCO or CC0, these can be shared, revised, duplicated, etc. So you can, and this is according to Cable Green, the one of the administrators of the Creative Commons, you can use any of these 5 licenses in AI tools to train them, or in prompts, or things like that. If you don't want people to use your materials, you can put that in a statement, and people should, ethically acknowledge that and follow it. But these licenses, you can use these things for training. So open access licenses also include full copyright licenses of materials that have been made publicly available. You can share those, you cannot edit those. David Wiley, in fact, Liza, I know you have the link because you were there. Could you share his awesome presentation if it's
I
not in
will
there?
find it. Yeah, you go ahead and talk about it. I'll find it. I have it somewhere.
Okay.
I should have put it in our notes.
So David, yeah, I should have too. David Wiley had an excellent presentation, an excellent webinar with the University of Manitoba, I believe. And
Regina. It was University of Regina.
University of
Yeah.
Virginia. So he calls for open prompt libraries and open weights for LLMs, large language models, and basically he is stating that the traditional OER is going to eventually kind of be replaced or at least highly supplemented by what he calls generative OER, or using AI to communicate information to students in a way that they need. And so it's not bombarding people with information, it's only giving them the information in the context they need in the moment. So it's highly personalized learning, but it's from an accepted, set of documents, set of information, and the weights and the models are open. So you don't have to worry about data pass back. He also champions using these privately through LM Studio or something. So you're not contributing to a massive AI tool, but so open access materials, OER, AI, they're all going to kind of come together. So he's thinking more futuristically. We're talking about applications right now, but in the future, it'll all kind of be more together.
Reed, I wanted to address a couple of the comments in the chat. So Teresa has a concern, I think that's totally related to the conversation on copyright. And it's actually like, this is where I feel a little unsure also, Teresa, that like this stuff was created off of copyrighted works, right? So we're all clear on that. I'm actually a member of the Writers Guild lawsuit against OpenAI because my book, The Price of Silence, was scraped without my consent from and as part of the book's 3 data set. So I'm part of that lawsuit. Now, our attorney thinks we're going to lose on fair use for the same application that was used to build search engines. So it's just a different way of thinking about how works are used. But that could be a concern. And I will say, at least for myself, early on, like maybe around summer of 2023, I had fears because I was already using these tools so much. I had fears that they might get shut down. Another approach that I've seen some lawsuits take, again, I'm not an attorney, is using the Digital Content Rights Management, the DCRM Act. I've seen some people taking that approach toward these tools. And basically, it's all in court right now. Right? So, and it's all new, and it's just confusing to see where it lands. But I think probably my attorney's right in the class action that at least the scraping of the web for this content is probably going to be called fair use. But I do like the intersection of open. Reed, I'm wondering, like, and then Misha also shared a concern that, like, if I use AI to facilitate my writing, then voice will be scrubbed by AI, and then you lose control over your voice with copyright. And I think that's a legitimate and more personal concern. So Teresa's concern is larger in a way that, like, we don't want to do anything illegal, and we don't really know, Teresa, if we're doing something illegal right now, right? For those of us who are rule followers, I put myself in that camp. That can feel uncomfortable. And then Misha's concern is more to, like, what is author voice? I think like for me, Misha, that question of what is author voice in the age of artificial intelligence, I'm actually going to be teaching a class on it that my good buddy Claude and I are going to write together because I'm teaching it in the spring, and that's just a couple months away. I know, I think at least one of you here has used Claude to help you build a class, and I'm using Claude. I'll use Claude that way. So, but yeah, these are all important concerns. I did share the David Wiley presentation. It was fascinating. Those of you who followed David Wiley's work in open, he's largely responsible for our conception of the 5 R's, and then he's really thinking about how AI will intersect with open. I wrote probably one of the first textbooks that was what I call hybrid writing, and I'm teaching my students hybrid writing too. So my literary analysis textbook I wrote with ChatGPT 3.5. It was an interesting experience, and yeah, we'll get into that. But like, it was an interesting experience because I had those same concerns, and I have Creative Commons licensed it, but I don't know. I mean, we're like, I don't know is really where we're at, right? So, yeah. Reed, do we want to get into some of those tools for creativity?
Let's do that. I could talk about this all the time, but that's not what we're here for. Yeah.
Well, unless there's other questions or thoughts.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you, Karna. I think I shared that link too to the US Copyright Office. They're definitely releasing some stuff. So thank you. So I am going to ask everybody to help us out here with a crowdsourced Google document. I guess I've designed this presentation for how, like, I sometimes need presentations. When I have ideas, I like to be able to, like, pop them somewhere. So I'm just grabbing this link right now for you all. It's also in the presentation if you have that open. But what I'm hoping you'll do is maybe share some of the tools and just like a quick description of what you're doing with those tools. It's just a blank space right now, but go ahead and share those and then I'll format it up and we'll all have the link to this document while we're thinking about it. Um, I guess in a way that image speaks to the copyright conversation we were having, but sorry, this is one of my favorite meme formats, this one right here with the little girl. Let's burn it all down, right? So yeah, feel free to share. Oh, and yeah, you can share that if you're not using it at all. That's totally fine too. And we'll just keep working on this throughout the rest of the workshop. So if you have some ideas or you want to pop them on there, that would be like really great and a way for us to learn a little bit more as well.
Yeah,
But we would like to share some of the things we're doing too and some of the tools we're using. So Reed, you can take this one away. I know that's very fine print.
yes, it's very fine print. I apologize. So I listed a bunch, and I'm not using all of these. Again, I mainly use ChatGPT and Claude. But if you have text, you have ChatGPT, Google Bard, Bing, Claude. You can use for text. Image, you have like I don't know however many like at least 10 free or open access AI image generators. And then we have text to speech audio. We have a lot of those. Speech to text. Whisper AI is really effective. In fact, is the only one that I know that's good at speech to text. Music audio, we have 3 or 4 of those. I prefer Udio to make music. And then we have video as well. And then we have so-called empathic AI by Hume. Hume AI is working on analyzing text and images and video for kind of nonverbal communication and inflections when you're communicating, so it can respond in an empathic way, allegedly. With all of these tools, you could be thinking like, how the heck am I going to um, know if this tool is sourced ethically, or know how to use this ethically, or know if it's following ethical guidelines? Well, a lot of times you're not. It depends on them being transparent. And so that is why it falls to you as the human, it falls to you as the user to use these responsibly. And is it fair that we have to take a bunch of these precautions and use it? Maybe not, but still, you are responsible. And this is one of the things that Steve Hargett, on one of my other colleagues, and I talk about when we do our own webinars, is that the human is ultimately responsible for what happens. There's no magic tool, there's no magic thing to make sure that everything is following copyright. It's your responsibility. So when you're using any of these tools, you're taking an awful lot of responsibility for how things turn out.
Yeah, that's the real challenge, I think. Right? It's still on us. Yeah. Oh, and I put a few things in the chat too for you. I know
Yes.
this one's a little bit hard to read, but I shared like a more basic, if you're brand new to AI or you know someone who is and want to share the resource, our Idaho team is putting together a resource for educators, and we've got just some basics. And then at least from my perspective, the Ithaca SR product tracker is, I think, the most comprehensive one I found. Reed, I don't know. Have you seen? I think it's just in the notes, and I put it in the chat too. But that Ithaca tracker has got just so many different resources and tools that you could use. And you can, if you're a spreadsheet person, you can sort them by type and whether they're free or freemium or paid or what's going on with that. So if you like spreadsheets, that Ithaca SR product tracker is a really good one. They seem to be keeping that updated for now.
Yeah, no,
So,
it's big, but it's not like overwhelming a lot of the time.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's take a look at things that are a little more customized. I know that some of this group might be playing around with these things as well, and would love for you to share them. If you have a custom GPT that you've created, would love for you to share it on that document again that we put the link to in the chat. Love to see links to custom GPTs. I'll put some of mine there as well. Reed, walk us through what that is.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So a custom GPT is a tool, or a custom AI tool, or a custom AI model, whatever you want to call it, is a generalized tool that has been given specific data or specific documents that is used for a specific purpose, a particular purpose. And in one of my other presentations, in fact, I referenced it earlier, in which I talk about creating these tools. I have a little chart that I talk about, and really I tell people you should be spending about half an hour kind of charting out or plotting out what exactly you want this AI tool to do, what it should have, how it should interact with users, all these different things. So you should be putting in a good amount of thought before we even touch, the creating software. But when you do, first of all, you should follow whatever branding guidelines or whatever instructions the provider has for creating a custom tool. Usually people use custom GPTs, so I am referring to custom GPTs, but you can use Claude, you can use multiple other tools, or you can use U, Poe, etc. Make simple instructions for the GPT. I would either use the CoStar framework or just kind of a paragraph format of this is what I want you to do. This is who you're going to interact with. And then I would limit each custom AI tool to one aspect of your work, like writing a report or analyzing data or writing an outline for a book or writing assignment instructions or something like that. But if you do create a general tool, don't use it for specific tasks, and don't use your outline creator for creating a data visualization or things like that. Keep every tool on its own task. Make sure that your tool is created from a people first standpoint. And I know that Teresa has a lot of resources and ideas on that, and Liza does as well. But essentially for me, what that means is make sure that the human is in charge of these things. Make sure that the human, like basically before anything starts, that the AI reminds the human to, what is your objective? What do you need to do? What guidelines do you want me to follow? So that the human knows, that the user knows what they're going to be meeting, and to keep the AI on task. Ensure that you have copyright or that your documents are open access. And that we've talked about that, but essentially just make sure that your AI tool is productive, and then it's going to do what you say it's going to do.
Yeah, this is great. Hey, Reed, I think we're at a really good stopping point to take some questions before we get into some actual demos of some stuff.
Yeah.
And also for a 5-minute break. So if anybody needs a 5-minute break, feel free to just hop out and we'll resume sharing some more things with you in 5 minutes, but we'll take a few questions that you have so far. And by the way, the creative or the collaborative doc is shaping up well. I just started adding some headers, like, so if you're doing stuff under Gemini, maybe find the Gemini header. If you're doing ChatGPT, maybe put it under ChatGPT. And I have a multimedia header in there too. So feel free to help me organize that, or I can figure it out myself later. But yeah, let's take a 5-minute break, but also Reed and I are going to hang out and answer questions. So Casey says, is a custom GPT basically asking the LLM to prioritize? The first one, but also the second. So I don't know, Reed, would you let me share my screen? I would be happy to demo one.
Yes, that's a good idea.
If that's okay. I don't know. I'm somebody who has to show stuff I have to be able to see something in order to understand it. And so let me just, yeah, sorry, I'm like looking at, it's such a first world problem to be staring at 2 screens, but that is in fact what I'm doing right now. So I'm sharing my chat, and I do, just to be clear, I have a paid version of ChatGPT. And so if you're using that free version, you're not going to be able to do this, which is one of the things I really hate about these tools. Already some really cool things are behind paywall. So I guess you can see I'm pretty busy. I'll show you TLDR. These are some of the custom GPTs I've created. So maybe this will answer your question, Casey. TLDR is designed basically for me. So I wanted to provide key takeaways on my blog posts that I could just, post right at the top so people could see what the longer blog post was about. If they didn't have time to read it, they could just like look at the TLDR and then walk away. So I created this for that exact purpose. It's created for one purpose. It's supposed to do one thing. It's supposed to provide concise key takeaways from short articles. So I can ask it, these questions I set myself. I can, anyone who uses this, and I'll share the link to this, it's open. But anyone can ask it to do this, and then it'll produce that content for you. I started using this in the educational setting with my students' papers. It's been so fun. One of the challenges with new writers is sometimes we think we've said what we thought we said one thing, but we didn't really say something that we wanted to say. And this TLDR really helps my students with organization and making sure that they really hit all the high points in their papers. This is really great for new writers. So I didn't think it would be that way. But on the back end, this one uses...
Liza,
What's
can
that?
I just interject? I don't think we're seeing
Oh,
what you're
I'm
seeing.
so sorry. There it is. Are you
Okay,
seeing
there
it
we go.
now?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is TLDR. So on the back end for TLDR, I just went into configure. Thank you so much. Like I said, I'm too screen challenged. But, so this is what it does, and this is what it tells people. And these are the instructions. They're very short. So anybody who either attached a file or copied and pasted in a file is just going to get a short 3 to 5 key takeaways from the article. I have not enabled code interpreter and data analysis for this one. So that's like an easy, this way it just does, like you asked, does it do the same thing over and over again? It does. Now let me show you one where what you're referring to with like, does it work with a specific set of documents? That's what we call RAG, for retrieval augmented generation. And that's like kind of a different kind of thing. So I'm sharing this with the caveat that this is a work in progress, this particular one. I'm trying to see if there's a way that we can automate some program assessment in our general education program. It's very time consuming, and sometimes we'll have a lot of disagreement with faculty about how to score a particular artifact. So I've been creating some bots, and these are we're still working out some kinks on these things. But this is a problem-solving assessment, and when we look at the configure on this, it's going to look very different. And Casey, this might give you an idea of how using documents would work. So I want this particular document. This is assessing problem-solving artifacts from across the college. And we have a specific rubric we've already developed. I want ChatGPT to rewrite this rubric, but that's another story. So this particular rubric is on a spreadsheet. I've uploaded it. And then my instructions, you can see, look very different. I wasn't able to get what I wanted for this bot, the output that I wanted, using natural language programming. So I used pseudocode. For some reason, it just seems to be more precise and focused when you pretend you're writing code to it. Right? Like, this isn't real code for any of you who are out there coders, but you can see I've got like credentials. Here's what you're doing. And so this is the role. When Ethan Mollick talks about the role, I've given it this role. And this is what I want it to have to be this role. I've given it a task, assess student artifacts. They need to use this rubric. So it got that, and it's good at that. And then the output format part was tricky. I needed it to come out in a CSV file. So I needed to see something I could copy and paste into a spreadsheet every time. And so it had to do these tasks, and then it did it. It's working. Like, it's working. I've got a spreadsheet. We've run about 163 artifacts through it. I can't share those on a public thing, but it's working. And I think there's still some tweaks I'll need to make to it, probably in the task section. But those are ideas of how you could use a custom GPT that I think are very different. If any of you are composition instructors, the other one I love, this one's also live and I'll share it, has been Intro Pro. I have very specific requirements that other teachers may not have for how I want my introductions to read in my English 102 classes. And so I have programmed this bot to make sure they don't use the second person pronoun you, to make sure they have a thesis statement that answers their research question and does not announce. And most importantly, to make sure they did not have the phrase "in today's world" anywhere in the introduction, because they will not earn a good grade if they put "in today's world." So someone's laughing at me about that, but you know what I mean. I don't want to read in modern society. So this bot is programmed like very, very specifically to tell students what I want from them. Like, look how long it is in the modern world. Like, and it can suggest and help them improve their introduction. So my students are enjoying this one as well. They're using it. But that's like when Reed talks about GPTs. And I just saw, Reed, I haven't played with these yet, but it looks like Google's Gemini now has them. Gems. Has anyone played with those yet?
So you can make gems on Gemini, but you can't share them out with other people.
You can't share them.
And I think you can only use them if you have a paid version.
Yeah, they're paid, but I just saw, like, just today or yesterday, I was like, oh, I haven't experimented with gems at all. similar vein is Claude, right? So those of you using Claude, you're still seeing my screen, I hope. I just love Claude for so many things. Claude for me does like have a lot of use cases that seem obvious through the projects, right? So like I created one that would check MLA format. Oh, and this was my favorite. I think I'll talk about this later, but I wanted to test Claude out when I was brand new to it. And I had to give a presentation for some speech and debate folks about using AI. That's not my field. I didn't have a lot of time. So I decided just to see what it could do. And I waited until 10 minutes before that presentation, popped it into Claude. It created the whole presentation for me. It created a graphic for me, handout. I walked in there looking so prepared. And then like it was really fun at the end because I always cite and acknowledge. I was like, oh, by the way, I had Claude make this for me like 10 minutes ago. So that was fun. Right? Always great to show students what you can do. Right. But again, I'm the human in the loop on that because while Claude you created the presentation, I'm the content expert. I decided what stayed in that presentation and what didn't stay. I decided I was the one who presented the information. So as we think about student assignments, right, knowing that these tools can do that, we might think about harder assignments, scaffolded assignments, presentation-based assignments, right? Like thinking of ways that students could use these tools. And Claude also got me to take a Python class, which I thought no one would ever do through actually an English project. So I didn't know anything about Python. I'd never taken it, but I thought, hey, I'm just going to ask it to like write some code for me. And it did. And I was shocked. I was like, it worked. It was super fun. It wrote the code. It did this little, then I was like, but it's ugly. It's in Python. So then it was like, oh, I'll make that pretty for you. I'm going to put it in a more appealing interface. And so it used React. It took my Python code, put it into React. And now my students like this. It's just like a little check for, did they do all the right things on the research question? I'm not a coder, but the experience, I would recommend those of you who aren't coders, try out the code. Just try it out because for me it was a very humbling experience. Like I could say, well, it worked, but there's probably some things I would tweak, but I don't know how to do that. Then I took a Python course, which I never would have done, but ChatGPT was an assist through the whole process, and it made Python like not easy, but like very manageable for me. I can't say it was easy, it was very new, and I liked going through that experience as a learner so that I could see how these tools impacted me as a learner. I don't know. We're kind of back, right? Reed, I'm just like sharing fun stuff to questions, but sorry about that. As you can see, Reed and I both love this stuff. I'm going to stop sharing and let Reed take over our presentation again. That was a long-winded answer to the question. I apologize.
But it was thorough, and yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm gonna try to get back to this slideshow.
Oh, Reed, I'm sorry. Yeah, no.
Oh, you're good. You're good because it gave me opportunity to go find my custom AI tools and then share those.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really exciting. And this is kind of this is the best thing about these presentations because it goes in places you might not think you're going to go to, but it all works out.
Yeah, so let's get back to, I think we had just looked at custom GPTs and we just demoed some of those.
Yes, so we demoed Claude.
Oh, Notebook.
And now we're going to do the Google's Notebook LM. And this is just fantastic. I don't know if we're going to demo it, but I experimented with it 2 weeks ago. I wrote an article, which I'm going to put in the chat here, artificial agency, about how AI is being treated like humans. And then I put it into Notebook LM and had it do a podcast about that. And it not only talked about the most salient points of most of the article, it actually came up with examples that I didn't even write in the first place. And it actually expanded upon what I was going to say. So it was really impressive.
Yeah, I mentioned I'm back in school. This is the first time I looked at a product, and you probably saw this. Okay, so the podcast feature was all over social media, I guess like what, maybe 2 weeks ago. That's how I heard about it. It's very gimmicky. This tool is so much more than the podcast tool. This goes back to that question of GPTs, and it's a really powerful retrieval augmented generation tool. So you can upload up to 50 documents in a single notebook. Now, those of you who do research, start thinking about this, because I've already started a research project using Notebook LM, and it's going to be a game changer, I can tell already. So you can store up to 50 documents, peer-reviewed journal articles, your own notes, like anything you want to put there, and then you can chat and query your own documents. So it will find specifically where something is. Maybe you need a quote to make a point. It will look through your source material and find that for you specifically. So it's such a time game changer. It can help you create briefing documents or summaries of things. It's just also, for me, it's what I always kind of wished OneNote was, to be honest. Like this makes a lot more sense to me. So I'm storing everything that's involved in a project in one place. I can create sticky notes for myself, which works. If you look to my office right now, that seems to be my project management style. I've got sticky notes and I move them around my office. But so the sticky notes works well for me. I will say when you're working with it, it doesn't remember chats yet, maybe. So what you'll want to do is create a note. If you have a chat and you want to save that information, create a little note and copy and paste that into the note. But it's really easy to organize stuff. I've been encouraging my students to use it. They are also reporting positive feedback on this, so they can use their classroom notes, they can upload PowerPoints from their professors, whatever. But what it enables them to do in a class, for example, let's say you're taking a chemistry class. You can upload your professor's PowerPoints. If you have if you have handouts or a PDF of the textbook or even a link to the textbook, you can put that all in Notebook LM, and it can create quizzes for you. It can create a study guide. It can create interactive activities. Oh, yeah. Can I share my screen really quick? Do you mind again, Reed? I'll show. I don't know if you, or maybe you have a notebook one you want to do.
Oh no, I mean, your deconstruction thing is fantastic. So.
Okay, I will try to share my screen again, and hopefully I have it. So you can see I'm pretty new to it. I'm just like creating some new stuff. You all are seeing Notebook, right? So it's Notebook LM. It's experimental right here. So the first thing I tried it on was a blog post that I'd written to see if it could really actually make a podcast, and it did. And I can get to all of those cool things that it's made. So like an FAQ, a study guide, a table of contents, timeline, briefing doc. I don't know if you haven't heard this yet, it might be worth just listening to a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because these are so funny. And then it gives me suggested questions that I can ask my notes that are context specific. So it knows this. All right. Can you guys hear this? Okay, I think I have to share.
You have to share your computer audio.
Yeah, hang on. This is where like I need to up my Zoom presentation skills, you guys. I know I can share this. So in share, Reed, it's just in computer audio, right?
Yes, I think.
Oh, I think so. Because it's worth hearing this if you've never, let's see. Share, advanced sharing options. It's not giving me that in there. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to be able to do it. Okay. Well, if you want to hear how it does a podcast, you can actually, my office mate uploaded her, I'll find the Substack I have on this that's kind of linked there. My office mate uploaded her son's 8th grade math assessment report, and I created a podcast off of that.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, man, this would have been so much better. So I've got a recording of it there where I'd figured out how to share audio on Zoom. But I just really like Notebook just for all those multiple ways of interacting. I think the podcast is gimmicky, and it's fun. But my students were all like, oh, wow, that's so cool. But we all kind of immediately understood the use case for this tool within education. Right, kind of thinking of like OneNote, except now it's OneNote where it can organize, summarize, help you to query your documents. And for me, for research, you might have seen the note really quick on Gorgias. That's a project I'm working on. I just I had this insight that Plato's attack on the sophist is also applicable to large language models. That they're designed to be helpful and not truthful. And so I have a research plan for that. For the Gorgias.
That is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, follow Liza on her man. Okay. Oh, I now we have the custom AI tool. I don't know why this is after everything else, but
Oh, and Nancy asked, can you create a shared project? That is a good question. You can provide access. All you have to do is the same way you'd share like a Google Doc or anything, Nancy. So it feels very much like that. I haven't tried out a shared document yet, but I was just talking to a colleague. We're actually thinking about organizing our first year experience research in Notebook LM. So it's just clicking share, the share link, just like you would for any Google product, and then you list who you can add to the workspace. So that's a very good question. But I haven't tested it out personally, so so keep me posted. Oh yeah, I guess I was going to share on here too. So like ways you can use AI as a professor and then also as a teacher. We talked about engaging with students. We've already covered like some of the open education concerns for writing an OER textbook with AI. I recommend trying this sort of thing out. One thing I noticed on our shared Google Doc was that people were saying, well, I find that it's really boring or basic, right, in my field when it does that kind of writing. And getting the output that you want from these tools takes more than one prompt. It takes a lot of coaching. It takes treating it less like a search, right? Like, again, I think it's actually it's poorly designed that this looks like a Google search because that's not what it is. In order to use these tools for scholarship or for like OER creation, for example, I think you absolutely have to be treating the AI like a colleague, if that makes sense. And that's one of Malik's tips as well, to treat AI like a human. You don't really think it's a human. It's not thinking, it's, it's math, right? But if you treat it that way when you're interacting with it. So like when I was writing Critical Worlds, I wanted it to play different roles. I wanted it to be a reviewer. In some cases, I wanted it to straight up create student essays for them. So I had it write model essays. And then I showed students exactly the thing you're talking about. Like I interrogated that text and I said, well, you're missing this, you're missing that. This is really boring. This is very conventional, right? So students being able to see both the conventional model of it's a genre, right? Literary analysis. It's a tough genre for students to understand. They don't understand it's an argument. I get a lot of book reports. So having like basically in this class, we write the AI first, or the AI writes the assignment first. And then our class discussion is around correcting the AI, making it more interesting, bringing in our own voice, deciding whether we think the AI is right or not, providing evidence, asking the AI for additional evidence, going to another tool like Perplexity to find better sources. So it just becomes a different way, I think, of teaching literature. My students say it feels like it's a game, which is kind of fun. Right. And this is a critical theory course. So usually I've had students who've been bored in the past, but they really like learning this way. Oh, Christelle, that is so interesting. Says her institution blocks her ability to use Notebook LM. Oh,
Yeah,
pity.
I didn't even know it existed. So
That's a pity. I will admit I use my personal Gmail account for that.
yeah, I do too.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I end up doing, and I'm sure the students can do that as well. So I'll have to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what, like you bring up a good point. Like, so for the longest time, my institution blocked Copilot for students, and I was needing students to have access to a high level large language model. Um, so yeah, ultimately we had to fight for that to get them to allow access to Copilot for students. I had to make a case. I like no good deed goes unpunished, right? I'm now like on some committee because like I'm like, what? I just wanted you to turn Copilot on, and now I'm on the AI committee or whatever. So,
That's what happens when you
is that
try
what
to make
happens?
change.
Yeah, I'm
There's
like,
advantage.
I was not signing up for a committee, but yeah, but so yeah, you might have to ask about Notebook. I am using my personal account for that. So, and I assume they're going to make us pay at some point, y'all. So,
Well, and it's interesting because I like probably about a month after ChatGPT was released, they released ChatGPT Pro, the paid version, and then I started paying by myself, and my wife and we still pay for it for my personal account, and I was like, I eventually I think my CSI is going to pay for it for me to, to have it. That hasn't happened yet, but it's worth it, I think. But yes, for a lot of these advanced abilities, you have to pay for it, or you have to use your own account. And it
Yes.
can be kind of difficult, but
Well, and I took the opposite approach really quick, Reed, because like I
Mhm.
absolutely refused to pay for it. I wanted to make the case that I needed this for my work. And one thing I want to point out, if you're new or you're thinking about scholarship, what I think might be the best thing to look at in Critical Worlds, I'll put the link directly in the chat. And keep in mind that I'm very vulnerable. So about my scholarship. So I knew nothing about using ChatGPT really when I started this project. It was brand new. I started working on this in January of 2023, right after ChatGPT had come out. And so I knew very little, and my initial prompts are just so bad. But I have shared every prompt that I used to write the book, and my students can see these too. What I like about that now is I actually have this living artifact. First of all, to show my students, look, here's what happens when you're transparent, and you can see your own growth. You can see how the tool is evolving, right? So it's a fascinating artifact to look at. This chapter that I just put in there for you, you can see the prompts that I used all the way through, links to the chat. I deliberately used 3.5 Reed because I refused to pay for 4. And then finally they finally pay for my 4 account now. But
maybe I should go to CSI and say, hey, I mean, I already tried that argument, but CSI doesn't pay for any subscriptions for anything because of of all these things, and so
yeah,
but no,
it's a larger conversation. I think you have to be an advocate about this though, Reed. Like, and for all of you on the call, like you need to advocate, like knowing this stuff, right? Especially if it's something like Notebook LM, that's going to be really good for your students. And if you're already a Google school, I mean, come on, right?
yeah,
Like, figure that
yeah.
out.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, feel free to like critique my really bad prompting. Like the funniest part for me is that I didn't realize that the sources were fake, like that it came up with fake sources. And so like there's this whole argument I'll have with it where it's like, these are not real sources. And then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, let me give you some real ones. And I'm like, these are also not real sources. Like, so but yeah, showing my students that. Although I did have a student tell me with a straight face that ChatGPT was smarter than us, and so even if I couldn't find the sources, that's just because I wasn't as smart as AI. So that was interesting.
It's interesting to see the whole spectrum of views on AI tools and things like that. Yeah, no, that whole transparent thing, like, because you have a whole page. In fact, I think that's what you shared, like a whole page
Yeah,
of actually of links.
every prompt and every link. Yeah.
Okay. I include in my sources, like in my textbook, the Introduction to Library and Information Science, and I actually use it in another one, cataloging one, but that's so bland that even librarians don't like reading it, so I didn't even mention it. But or even have an image of the cover. This one does. In the reference section of the book, I have links to the chats that I used to make it.
Mhm.
And yeah, you can see I actually a year ago, and Teresa, I think you attended this, I presented at AECT about using AI. It was called effective integrate or effective use of ChatGPT in education. And my prompts that I shared as examples of good prompts were awful, like horrible. Like I cringe at the fact that I use these prompts. So in this other upcoming presentation I'm going to have at AECT in a few weeks now, much better prompting now and much better examples. But it's interesting to see everybody's progression if you share and are transparent about how you use AI tools. Um, and even also like the change in how you share what you do with AI tools. Like I used to say, yeah, I use generative AI in my thing. Now I have a whole citation style that I use and the links, and I say exactly what tool I use, and it's different for images and text. So it's important, I think, to be transparent about not only what you're making, but how you're making it. So sorry, a little tangent, but I think that
No,
all
I think it's so important. It's so important. And think about that yourself, right? And like what you're modeling for students if you're willing to show them your process, right? And let them see how you're thinking with these tools. So, I mean, we showed a lot of stuff. We still have plenty of time. I know, Reed, we had some activities if they wanted to try them, but I would also, if you guys have some questions right now or things that you'd like to see more of, we had, or ideas you want to share out. I've been monitoring our cool new resource. We're getting a lot of stuff on there. Thank
A
you.
ton. It's almost overwhelming. I'm like, where do I start? What do I address? It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So any questions that you have or thoughts that you have want to put in the chat, or feel free to unmute too if that's helpful.
Oh yeah, no, thank you, Teresa. Thank you for they were pretty great for that time. She says, yeah, they compared to other people who were sharing other things people were sharing, they were good. But not compared to now. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot about actually in the multimedia tools section. A lot of people are considering using it for translation, for generating images, embedded AI tools in multimedia. Talk to Teresa about that with her H5P. She's the H. Are you still doing H5P, Teresa, at the Marymount right now? Because they're using embedded AI tools, I think, in
Oh,
there.
H5P has them built in now, Reed? I haven't made anything
I thought they
H5P in about
were.
4
Are they not
months.
built in anymore? Or
They're using, if you have h5p.com, they have AI generated. You can put your content in it and it'll generate multiple choice things and things like that for you automatically, and then you can pick from them and adapt them. But there isn't a built-in like in the documentation tool where students could type in their own notes and then copy those out or turn them in as an assignment. They don't have yet like a GPT in it that could generate. They couldn't talk to the AI.
Oh, they don't have like a bot.
Yeah, not yet. But yesterday I was in a webinar for H5P and they're talking about doing that now. So
that would be a cool feature. And that would probably be similar to those custom GPTs that I shared with you all. Or honestly, like Reed and I didn't even get into this, but I will tell you my own next area of research with this, and you'll see a lot of this on social media if you follow it, is something that David Wiley mentioned. It's these small language models, these tools that you can actually customize and run on your laptop locally, right? And so that's maybe like an 8 billion parameter model, or I guess the ones I've just been seeing are Llama 3.1 and 3.2 that people are running on their phones. And these are so much smaller parameters, but they're getting some great responses. And one thing Wiley pointed out is you can then like custom train these on the documents and information. So like I'm envisioning using it back for that literary analysis class again to create. Originally, I was going to do a custom GPT that they could interrogate about the book, but now I'm increasingly leaning toward creating my own little model that uses that book as its source in all my spare time, right? Like I know like all of you at my school, we teach a 5-5, so that's not a lot of spare time right now, but that's the next area I'm interested in. So if you're a little more advanced with this use and you've heard something about that, I asked my oldest, who's a coder, he's like, oh yeah, Mom, that's easy. You can do it. So if he says so, I'm sure I can. We'll see. Reed, you played with that, like with LM Studio, right?
I did a little bit. I downloaded like the largest model on LM Studio, and then it blue screened my computer, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh, right.
I haven't done that yet, but now if I do a smaller one and don't try to get the biggest one in it, and especially since smaller ones are getting better, that's actually what I'm going to do after this meeting is explore making a localized LLM.
I want to answer a couple questions in the chat too. We're getting some really good, thoughtful ones. So Jamie says, we have faculty who are incredibly concerned about the environmental and ethical impacts of AI, given how language models are trained on content without author or creator consent. How do you consider these issues in the classroom with your students? And I have to start by saying you must consider these issues. So Jamie, for me specifically, the environment and climate change is the big one for me. And when I wrote an essay that I assigned to my students where I'm like grappling with some of these exact questions, right? And I don't have answers, unfortunately. I mean, I think I somewhat snarkily say, well, I fly on airplanes, but that's not a good answer to that question, right? So these are very important questions. The climate change stuff has been coming out a lot in the mainstream press lately. I guess because I was reading Ministry for the Future last summer, I immediately, on playing with these technologies, understood that there was definitely going to be a huge energy use involved in them. And I had a really hard time locating information last summer on that. I was able to find some studies. I kind of looked adjacently at NFTs and at crypto. because the way these things work, it's not the same, but it's similar in terms of energy consumption, kind of, and servers and matrices and how it's set up. So yeah, they're huge. They're a huge impact. Like, I think you won't be surprised, Jamie, I asked ChatGPT about that. I asked it what major ethical concerns there were around the tools, and it gave me a bunch, and it didn't put climate change on. So I asked it, what about climate change? And it was like, oh, don't worry, AI is going to solve that. I was like, wow, it's like a very self-serving answer. But I will say, interestingly enough, AI, it hasn't solved that particular problem yet, but it is like making some real strides in energy savings, right? So AI isn't just these chatbots that we're using. There's some kind of remarkable things happening in the healthcare space and also in the energy space, where these tools are just able to use all of human knowledge and then kind of think of it in new ways, find new things that we didn't see, find them faster, right? So I don't know that solves that problem, but I do know you can't ignore it and you must address it. It's absolutely critical to not hide those questions away. For myself, if you look at the work that where I've co-created, I do have an acknowledgement statement from Donna Phipps and I can't remember her first name, Lacklos, but Phipps and Lacklos very early on came up with the equivalent of a land acknowledgement statement. That's an AI acknowledgement statement about digital equity, the environment, theft, and of course the disproportionate impact of these tools and their development on the global south, which is another issue I think we have to talk about. In my own classes, I call this out explicitly through the readings I assign. So I think that can be one way that you can make sure your students are getting this information, grappling with it, and engaging with it. As I mentioned at the beginning, like, I don't think any student or frankly any faculty member who doesn't want to work with these tools should have to. Uh, and that's been a stance I've taken from the beginning. So again, I'm requiring it in my classes, but you don't have to take my class. There's a bunch of other sections, right, that you can take, and I won't feel bad if that's a decision you make. I appreciate the ethical. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Carney. Yeah, the digital is people statement. So I use that as a model. I give that to my students as a model as well for how we can acknowledge. But like, it's the same with land acknowledgements, right? Like, it's great that we're acknowledging things, but that doesn't answer the question or solve the problem, like, candidly, right? And it's an important question. And so like, first of all, just acknowledging the problem. I think secondarily, really making sure that students are aware of that discourse, right? And feel they have a place in it. They are our future. They're going to help to shape what this world looks like. And especially climate change, that is a huge concern for my Gen Z students. So, paying attention to that and honoring that. And I know that's not it's not an answer really. I'm telling you how I address it, but I'm validating your question, Jamie. It's an important one, and all of you who think that's an important question. Reed, do you have anything you want to add on that?
I think the environment, yeah, the environment thing, you were the expert on that one.
Not an expert. I'm a
Well,
concerned citizen. Yeah.
compared to me, you are. And I think it also kind of talks about, goes toward Lay's question, when we're talking about ethics and ethical impacts. She asks, if you could only run one exercise with students to help them understand the capacities or limits of generative AI, what would it be? And I would say unequivocally that anything to do with ethics, with emotions, with something that makes people human, ask it to write about that. And then have the student write about it as well. And don't have them look at each other. Don't have the student look at the AI thing. They will see, or really, to make it simpler, ask them to write about something that is important to them and why it's important. Or
Let me piggyback on that, Reed,
Yeah.
because not just important, what I've found is very successful for students is ask them to talk to AI about something they're an expert in. So, and I do mean like their favorite video game, their favorite anime.
That's good.
And I did not come up with this. This is from the YouTuber Marcus Brownlee, who I really like following Marcus, and he's very accessible, covers a lot of tech products, has done a lot of good stuff on AI. But he said that he's like, if you want people to understand the limitations, just talk to it about something you're an expert in, and right away you'll see, this goes back to what some of you were saying on our crowdsourced document, that students who are an expert in a particular anime are going to see pretty quickly the limitations of AI. right? Just like we know when they have AI write their work and it's incomplete or misses some important parts of our discipline, we know that too. So building on Reed, your very excellent answer, I would say also having students start with something they're an expert in.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good thing. That, in fact, that's much more simple because yeah, it talks about something that only they could know, and well, or really, something that somebody trained on the general internet wouldn't really probably pick up on. And it reminds me kind of a little bit about two things. First of all, it wouldn't be a webinar with me without a Fraser reference. And in one of the first episodes of Frasier, Martin and Frasier are talking about, they're trying to get together because Martin just moved in. Martin's Frasier's dad, and they're talking about pain. And Frasier brings up this really painful experience in his life and kind of the emotions that it brought up in him. And then Martin talks about how he goes downstairs to went into the storage space and he got hit in the head, and that was really painful for him. And Frasier is like, I'm not talking about that type of pain. I'm talking about your emotions, your soul, what makes you human. And Martin just kind of talks about more superficial things. And so that's kind of not a perfect example, but one is talking about your emotions and the other is talking about the only pain that they can understand at that point, which is, physical pain. And it's one is more deep, one is more superficial. That's kind of how ChatGPT works a little bit. Another comparison I would have to say is a conversation I had yesterday, which was incidentally about how AI works. And someone who was very educated on how AI works went to great pains and talked for 7 minutes about, how AI talks about, processes data and then doesn't keep it, but then, he went through the whole shebang of basically the whole data field calculus of something, of how AI works. And then another participant in this conversation kind of couldn't really understand, but they were coming at it from a database kind of a software engineering or a database manager point of view, and they were they were comparing it to something they knew, but it wasn't really correct. It wasn't really an accurate representation of what AI tools were able to do. And they just kept going on and on about this and how, everyone knows that databases work this way and this is how databases work. And they were saying, so AI works this way too, but it really would. And all that my friend could do was just kind of sit there and go, nod. And so that is perfect, Liza. Your suggestion of having them talk about something that the user is an expert in, because they will be able to know what's right, what's wrong, and what is valuable, basically. And
Yeah, I think the importance of building in that skepticism, it really is implied in both of those questions, both about the ethical concerns and also like the limitations. And keeping in mind that AI is, we said at the beginning, our presentation is robots won't replace us. That depends on, we need to make that really clear that the robots won't replace us, right? So coming at that place. Oh my gosh, Teresa said she was betting on a Frasier. Do you
Oh,
have a
thank
bingo
you.
card, Teresa? You've heard both of us present, so she knows our styles.
I'm sorry that you had to wait so long. I actually had a Frasier meme in the beginning, but like no one is going to get this. I'm not going to use this.
Oh, like my
Yeah.
Butlerian Jihad one wasn't way obscure. I think somebody said we could talk the whole time on Dune. We probably could.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We have about 25 minutes left. I was thinking,
Oh,
thank you.
thanks so much, Sarah. But that's like
I'm
very early
sorry.
in the morning. You are dedicated. I appreciate that.
I use that
Well,
statement in my testimonials about my webinars. Like someone waited
someone
until.
waited until, yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, and Reed does do a lot of great webinars and education on like specific content. As you could probably see, we had 2 hours budgeted for this, but every single point we touched on could probably open up an entire other conversation. We do have some ideas for some activities or some playtime kind of built in, but I'm wondering if there are any other questions or anything that we missed or something you wanted us to kind of bring out or show you again. before we look at some of those activities that we
Or is
could
there
try.
something that you want Liza to demo for you? She's excellent at demoing.
Oh, that's funny. I do like to play with these tools. It's true. So, yeah. And I'd encourage you to, like, I do make a lot of videos. I actually use Zoom to make videos, and I mostly make them for my students. So sometimes showing them how to do things. Or, oh, this is one that didn't come up though. I was mentioning that faculty member who was asking me about students using AI to write their discussion board posts, and we also didn't really talk about student privacy, which is another thing I could go on and on about. But but one thing, back to modeling behavior, that you can really try, like, just tell them not to do that. I didn't realize this would work so well. I had a few students in my fully online mythology class, which I will admit, this class is extra. Okay. Like, I love mythology, and there's a lot of stuff. And I'm asking students some hard questions. But I don't really grade on like how great they are as writers in that class. I'm really looking for them to think and to engage. So I started seeing a lot of these perfectly written discussion posts, and I'm like, oh no, I am so not interested in this. This is super boring for me as a teacher. It's not satisfying. So I made them basically a rant video that has apparently made the rounds at CWI Reed now, because all the tutoring center, I guess they all watched it, and they were like, oh, so I'm like low-key famous with our tutoring center now. But basically it was like, please, 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 I beg you, please do not use AI to answer your discussion posts, because it's so boring. But then I showed them how to do it, right? Like, so I pulled up ChatGPT and I was like, oh, hey, let's copy my discussion prompt into ChatGPT and see how well it does, right? Put it in there. I said, I'm going to add a few extra lines because ChatGPT does know I shouldn't cheat. So I'm going to tell it that I just want a model that I can compare mine to, because sometimes, I don't know if you've tried this, but sometimes if you just try to get it to cheat, it won't. It'll tell you not to cheat. Has anyone seen that? It will
That
do
only
that.
happened to me once.
Yeah, so if your students aren't super sophisticated yet, I mean, I'm sure there's a million TikToks on how to get around that, but like, so I showed them how to get around it, basically like, look, I just tell it I just want a model, I'm going to compare mine, and the end of it was like, be sure to use this just as a model. I'm like, yeah, wink, wink, right? ChatGPT, that's exactly how we're using it. But the answer was just so bland. It was so bland. It was a question about the apocalypse, about Christianity, and the George Bush administration in 2004.
Wow.
And the answer refused to go anywhere political, which was interesting to me. So it's just a very boring, bland answer. And I was like, I don't want to see a single answer like this. I'm going to be watching. And, darn it, they all did their own work, I think. Like, I had some really great, interesting, engaging discussion responses, and they were interacting with each other. And we had a great and I think important conversation. I was using something from 20 years ago, but really, obviously, to talk about stuff that's going on today. And they picked up on that right away, and they were happy to take that in a respectful way. So that's why I teach. That's what I want students to do: make those connections themselves. And AI can't do that for them, right?
No.
AI doesn't make those explicit connections. AI is not that student with that student's experience and life and what that student brings to the tool. So, I tell my students, use it, yes, but it's not you. It can't replace you. It can't replace your learning. It can't replace your unique set of experiences. I teach creative writing sometimes too, and there was a great New York Times. I'll find it and put the link in the chat. There's a fantastic New York Times novelist, trained a bot, like I've trained a bot to write like him. And then they each wrote their own short story. And the writing style, if I were just evaluating on syntax and style, the bot captured his style pretty well. But it was so clear to me immediately which one was the human one, because of the very unusual connections, the unexpected things the characters did. Whereas in the AI version, everything was exactly plotted the way you might expect something that was built on statistical probability would plot a short story. So it wasn't about the style per se. It was just the whole package. So AI's inability to make interesting connections. Oh, that's so interesting, Loring. So yeah, a lot of other people are noticing that. I'm glad you brought that up with your students. Right. And then if they see the AI as a part of their process, instead of like a final product, I think we're going to see actually some very interesting work coming out of students. Again, I've really upped my requirements in 102 for what I'm looking for from students. I require longer papers. I require higher quality sources because they have access to these tools and I'm teaching them how to use them. So let's up your game, right? We do a multimodal project at the end of the semester instead of a paper. It turns out those are way more fun to grade, in case you've ever wondered, than papers. So all that kind of stuff, I think, are ways we can model it for students, make them work smarter to get more interesting work, but it cannot replace them. Yeah,
I
that's great, Lori.
I taught a course on information literacy in the summer, and I had them do multimedia presentations, and it seemed like a lot of people. No, first of all, they thought it was more fun. Most of them actually didn't use AI because I made them go to the AI literacy course. I think I scared them. Like, all these issues you can have with AI, but you should use it. But only I think one person used it for one assignment. But multimedia and kind of project-based assignments, not only are they less reproducible by AI or less fulfillable, but I think they make the student learn more because they have to communicate about things. And the ways they have to communicate it is in multiple modalities, multimedia. That's what multimodal is. And so, not only is it a higher version of learning and communicating, but it's a way to be productive. And yet, yeah, exactly. Don't have the AI replace the student. Thank you. That you put your the list AI exploration guide for education.
Yeah, I didn't know if it seems like our questions might be kind of wrapping up. I didn't know if we wanted to transition into trying some activities or if you have more questions or things you want to demo, but we did want to build in a little time to practice and play, just because I know all of us have so many obligations and you've blocked off these 2 hours. We have about 18 minutes left, I guess, on our calendar. That would give you some time to try. These are 20 activities you can do in 20 minutes, probably less. So, but if there's something that has been curious to you today or something you want to try, that might give you a place to start. I know some of you are still, and if we want to talk more ethics, or even I would love to hear from some of you who aren't using AI as well about your concerns and where you think this is going, because I do think that continuing to hear those conversations are important. Oh yeah, Christine, Google Notebook is so great. The Notebook LM is so great for that. So yeah, Perplexity is also really good for that. I don't think that's one of the ones that's listed in. These were put together. I'm one of 2 AI fellows for the state of Idaho, and these activities were put together by my co-fellow, Jason Blomquist, and they're really, really fun. So I was excited to get to share them with you. Yes, Christine, that's how I'm using it for my gorgeous paper. I'm definitely using it for a lit review. It's such a great idea. And we didn't really touch on scholarship, but people are definitely using it.
Yeah, well, in fact, there was a post or an article actually. Was it today or yesterday? This morning, that basically the writer was saying, and I'll see if I can find it. Let me use generative AI to help me write my scientific articles, and he submitted it, and it was accepted for publication in a journal of, if I'm using it and if I'm using it effectively and I'm making sure that I'm the dominant voice, there should be no problem with me using it. And let me see if it was really interesting argument on that.
Yeah, and like I saw an interesting statement from Patricia, like, she's in a creative field, screenwriting professor, doesn't use it, and students don't either. Yeah, I think, Patricia, I know less about your industry, but then I'm a writer, so I'm adjacent to this. And yes, this was a big concern, I think, with the most recent strikes, if I'm recalling, right? What was really interesting? So I was interested in how it could be used, what the applications were for creative writing. And I haven't blogged about this yet, but this is actually going to be my next blog post because I needed to wait for the NaNoWriMo stuff to calm down. I don't know if any of you followed that. National Novel Writing Month, like blew up. It's a long and interesting and sordid and very niche social media explosion. But so I'm waiting for that to calm down. I don't yeah, want to be attached to it. But I obviously have used these tools. So those of you who are familiar with Sheila Heti, the novelist, she wrote a really interesting short story. She co-wrote it with artificial intelligence in 2022. So this would have been like ChatGPT 3, like an early version of the chatbots. And I read that short story in the New Yorker. I'll find the link for it. It's really great. I think it's like Go Ask Alice or something like that, or it's just a really interesting short story. And you can't, she doesn't explicitly say what she wrote and what AI wrote. It's a work of creative fiction. And she says she used it. So I thought, oh, I would like to try that. I'm going to try using generative AI to write a short story as well. And I was teaching fiction, independent study. I always write along with my students. We were doing epistolary genre, and our local literary society has an annual competition. It's a blind read. And I thought, oh, I'm going to write a short story with AI and I'm going to submit it. Well, I ended up not using AI a single word that it produced, Patricia, because it was so bad. And I'll share screenshots. However, what I discovered it was really great at was, again, being my writing buddy, being my partner. It was a fantastic developmental editor, and it gave me really great developmental editing advice, and for my student too. And because we both were testing it out, and I did that. My short story was chosen, so I think it was like a pretty high success rate. Actually, I think it was around 9%, but like mine was selected as one of the ones that went into the publication. And so not a single word written by AI, but AI was definitely involved in the creation. I wrote every word, but AI told me what things were missing, what things were underdeveloped, like ways that I could move the plot more in more interesting ways. So I just used it like a developmental editor. So I wish we could get Hollywood to think of it that way, to take people's already good ideas and then help them to realize their good ideas, right? But when it just writes stuff, well, Hollywood already has its interesting problem of just wanting to produce sequels. I guess AI can write sequels, no problem, right?
Fine with me. It's the original stuff that
Yeah,
me. And it's my MFA grad students actually do not want to use AI because they understand the importance of developing their own voice and vision. And you can't
right,
do that. You just can't do it.
right,
It is, in my opinion, a shortcut that's not going to work or pay off for you in the long run.
right,
In
yeah,
the undergrad screenwriting, one student had to go before the grievance committee
okay,
because they used it to write a treatment for a movie. And it was so obvious it was AI that the professor had to turn them in, basically. So this
yeah.
is serious. In our division, it's serious. On the other hand, we have professors who are teaching a class called AI for screenwriting and producing.
Right. And this is the tension, isn't it? I'm
Yeah.
developing a class like that for our creative writers. Yeah, exactly. This is the
So
tension.
yes,
Yeah.
it's complicated. I
It's
understand.
complicated. And it's so interesting you said that about grad students because like, I talked about my professor, like with his little no AI ever, you're a grad student. Well, he's right. Like I have no interest I clearly use AI a lot. I use it for a lot of boring writing, but that's not boring writing to me. That's exciting writing. Why would I outsource an essay on critical theory to AI? Like, I
And
want to write that.
our workshops are so people have peers to give feedback. They should not have a virtual writing buddy at home. It doesn't make
Yeah,
totally anathema to the notion of what a writer does. We sit in a
yeah.
room alone with our ideas and we wrestle them to the ground because that's what we have to do. And it comes from our mind and heart. And I know I sound like a troglodyte, but
Not at
that's
all.
real.
No. It's
Yeah.
absolutely an important position, an important voice. And obviously, again, I feel a little differently about that. This was what the NaNoWriMo conversation was
Right.
about, though, Patricia. Exactly what you said was the idea of are we being a little bit elitist and classist and maybe like denying certain voices the opportunity to be heard by not letting them use these tools in that way? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying there's like different ways to approach the question. Like, because I totally hear you,
understand.
right? So yeah.
Well, thanks for the seminar today.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks for being here. I hope you have at least some ideas, maybe how to work with your students. I would say with your students, the takeaway is getting that buy-in. And it sounds like with your graduate students, you have it. With your undergraduate students, right? Like, how do you get that buy-in? You're clearly very passionate and skilled at what you do. So explaining that to them, I think, is really important. Nancy wondered if you're contributing to AI's data collection. It depends. Nancy, it depends. That's a whole other presentation. I will find the link to it. Tori Trust has like an 80-slide presentation she created that really digs into the terms of service. That's what I mean when I say it depends. It's really about what your terms of service say. I personally prefer Claude for that reason. Claude's default is to not use anything that you're using in its training model. So but that question, so Claude doesn't, like Lauren, you mentioned that. Claude does not by default collect your data. ChatGPT does, even the paid version, and reserves the right to like use your prompts, which, I mean, we've talked about copyright of like original works, but what about copyright of prompts, right? And again, David Wiley is advocating for open, but prompting is its own thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, and also if you go, and I'll try to find, I think it's privacy.openai, you can opt out of them collecting your data ostensibly and using it to train for your conversations. And you can also, if you input PDFs into your custom GPTs, there's a button or a thing you can click where it won't use the AI to train, or it won't use the conversation data to train general AI models, but are they really following that? You know,
yeah,
trust it to you know.
and also like, oh, and like Patricia mentioned, she wanted to see how it's used for ideation. I actually love using it for that, Patricia. I think that brainstorming is its most useful application actually, because again, it's not a fact machine. It's a generative tool, right? So asking it to give you like 20 ideas on a concept can really help you to find something that might be fun for you to pursue as a writer. And then like any kind of boring writing that you would do, like emails or proposals or things like that. I don't know. But the creative work, I think where it's most useful in creation is in generation. That's kind of its strength, like coming up with creative ideas. When I mentioned that it seemed to be solving some energy and healthcare problems, that's exactly how it's solving them. It's coming up with novel ways of looking at the situation that we just hadn't seen yet, right? And it can do it so quickly and come up with so many options, but then you need that expertise to decide which options are good. And that's where with your students, like if you did want to use it for ideation, teaching them how to recognize the good ideas would be important, right? They don't automatically know that. So yeah, so that I think that is a good use of AI. And I've certainly used it that way in both creative writing classes. We use it a lot in first year writing classes to think about solutions. They have to write a problem solution essay. So coming up with solutions, even to come up with a counter argument solution can be helpful. So yeah, those are all good. Well, we're getting close to time. I did put that link in the chat for those activities. We kind of hoped you'd have some time to play, but I love the conversation. I shared Tori Trust's example. That is like 80 slides long, and she only walks through Gemini, Copilot, and ChatGPT, not Claude. By the way, we didn't even really get into the differences between the models, but Claude does have just a completely different foundational approach to this this topic that I think aligns more closely with my own. I don't know. Back to Reed, it's more like Asimov, right? The constitutional model that Claude uses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT has a bunch of technical prompts and a bunch of data things, and yeah, all the chat is probably what, like 300 words or something, just a constitutional thing, and that's all it has is its instructions. Yeah.
Yeah, constitutional meaning like, do things. Here's a set of principles to guide you in how you put this stuff out. So yeah, we're watching some turf war go on right now. Whatever's going on with ChatGPT, I'm super interested. We'll see with OpenAI, it seems to be in flux and turmoil. We see a lot of those folks leave and go over to Anthropic, which is intriguing. That Anthropic is Claude's parent company, so named after humans, right? So, but yeah, like these were all, this was such a great, great conversation. I hope I answered most of the questions, Reed. I think we did get most of these.
Yeah.
Specific guidance or prompts for specific tools faculties are creating. Oh my goodness, that's a great question, Teresa. And again, like ChatGPT is great at that. Right? Claude, I showed you the interactive tool I created with Claude. ChatGPT can create those as well. That you're just asking it. And if you don't know what you're asking for, if you're not sure, just start talking to it. Treat it like an expert. Tell it who it is. You're an expert instructional designer. You are Teresa Huff. You know, like what? You're an expert instructional designer. And, you know, oh my gosh, Brendan, LOL.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm not on Twitter, sadly, so I can't comment on that, but yeah. But yeah, so just like if you're treating it that way and you're not sure what to ask, but you kind of have an idea of what you want, talk to it, right? Like just have a conversation with it. And like that Claude artifact I showed you, I hadn't even thought about creating an interactive tool for students when I went into that conversation. That wasn't even my plan. But as we talked, I was like, oh, I think you can probably write some code to create this interactive tool. Let's try that. Can you do it? It said, sure, here it is. I said, that's great. You know, I opened Python, it ran. I was like, that's wonderful, but my students aren't going to want to open a compiler. So can you make this web-based? Sure, here it is. Okay. You know, this was a conversation and I didn't even know how to ask it, but if I talk to it, it gives me the terms I need. So yeah, I think you just have to try. But absolutely, you mentioned drafting learning objectives, Teresa. So like we have I always use it to wordsmith any learning objectives that I have. Do you use it that way right now? And I'm seeing a lot of people using that way. I feel like the learning objectives are like a genre that have been completely subsumed into Chat GPT at this point. Like every presentation I go to. Like, oh, look at that. And then if you're really good, everyone's using gamma.app right now to do so they'll write them in Chat GPT and then I'll put that link in the chat, but gamma.app is what everyone's using. So if you're seeing a lot of presentations look the same, Reed and I went old school. We just stuck with Google
Yeah.
Slides.
Well, and I think it's kind of funny. We created the slides and then Gamma.app at least became popular if it didn't like come out. And then yeah, I was thinking if we would have, you know, thought about it and waited, we could have just used Gamma.app, but we were like halfway through creating our slide deck and I go, oh, well, we'll just use our manual.
I did a presentation yesterday. We used Gamma. It was great. But I was like, I think every presentation is Gamma now. So yeah. But it's slick. It has I think Gamma has some accessibility issues that that Google products do not have. So yeah. Well, it was so great to meet you, Lawrence. Thank you for being here. And if you do need to go, we're obviously done with our presentation, just chit-chatting. But if you have a few more questions or just thanks again for the opportunity, you guys. We were so thrilled to get to connect with you. And Reed, share our last slide. We have our contact info.
Ooh, yes.
And Teresa can share that out too. But we would love for you to get in touch if you have more questions or want to chat about any of this stuff. We would love it. Oh, good, Misha. I'm glad it was valuable. Thank you for being here. So
Thank you so much, Liza and Reed. I'm about to stop the recording, but we will make sure to share this. And also, if the list of links, they were so wonderful and so helpful, we'd be happy to share those as well. Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Thank you very much.